1 second. Okay, there we go. Hey, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Hey, Soren, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking the time to do this today.
All good.
Uh,
Are we live?
we
Already?
are live, yeah. So let me adjust the
Cool.
settings here on the stream, and then we'll go display interview. Awesome. All right. And then I just need to adjust one other thing. Oh, hey, what's up, Maya? Thanks for the host. All right. Cool. Got it all lined up. Great. Awesome. So, thank you again for taking time to talk with me today. I know you're a busy person right now. You got a lot going on. I'm sure we can talk a little bit about how the split's going in a little bit, but I kind of wanted to start for most of the viewers should know who you are. But let's talk a little bit about the history that maybe they don't necessarily know. But, you know, as a player, I wanted to kind of direct this towards health and wellness. Obviously, that's kind of my role in esports, and that's what I kind of do best for the teams. And I want to know your experience in playing League of Legends. You know, what sort of health challenges have you had over the course of your career, which is one of the definitely the longer careers in LCS for sure.
Mm, yeah. I think definitely the biggest one is kind of wrist pain and tendonitis. I
Hmm.
struggled with that maybe 6 years ago, and it was pretty on and off all the way until I retired. Like when I was in China boot camping in 2020, it was still kind of bothersome to me, but to a much lesser extent because of working with physical therapists and doing a lot of strength training, especially, was really helpful to me.
Yeah.
Gaining weight, gaining muscle, because I was really scrawny back 6 years ago, and I know that the skinnier you are, and especially the less muscle you have, you're more likely you pull more on the tendons, right? And you get kind of
Yeah.
higher chance of having your wrist be inflamed,
Sure. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
sciences of it, but that's generally what I've been told by a lot of different people. So
Yeah.
as soon as I started kind of beefing up, gaining weight and gaining muscle, it got a lot better, and it was gone for a while, but it was still something when I was really grinding hard that would always come back.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And definitely,
that's definitely been the primary one.
it sounds like your PT did a good job educating you. So yeah, shout out to Jen. She's also one of the therapists working with me at Respawn Therapy. She's actually in the chat right now. She says hi.
Oh,
But yeah, she's worked with Bjergsen for a while. And so when in your career did you start actually seeing physical therapists get involved in esports?
mm, that's a good question. I think I first started having wrist pain in 2014, 2015, and there wasn't really such a thing. I went to a doctor. They took me to a doctor, and then the doctor referred me to a physical therapist, and I went there in person 2 to 3 times a week.
Hmm.
In the morning, it was just me and like a bunch of elderly people, honestly.
Yeah.
So I felt a little bit out of place, but uh, I want to say it was the few years after that, maybe like 2016, that we kind of had our own dedicated physical therapist that would then come to our house, which was really nice. I didn't have to get up super early in the morning and go to this place down in Santa Monica. Someone would come to my house and also just seemed a little bit more knowledgeable in the esports space and the issues that we were facing.
Yeah.
Um, so
Do you think that's important then? So the difference between going to a regular physical therapist and then having a physical therapist actually dedicated to working with gamers in esports, is there a clear distinction between that?
uh, I don't know. I'm not really an expert, but when I went to the clinic, it just felt like there was a lot of things that they had to do, like these pages that I had to fill out, and it
Right.
just all felt very like mm, it wasn't as personal. It was just like circle this smiley that relates the most to the pain that you're having and
Yeah.
these kinds of things. Even though I explained like I don't have pain other than when I'm playing really, and it just when we started working directly
Right.
with a physical therapist, it was just more personal, less kind of time waste, and doing these things that feel more
Yeah, it's more
like just
specific.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever get told as a result of injuries and seeing doctors and all that? Did they ever tell you like, "Oh, why don't you stop playing for a little bit"?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the worst thing you can hear as a player, right? You're like, I can't stop
Yeah. Yeah.
playing. Like, that's your job, it's your career. So that's the one thing I try to stress at any players I work with. I was like, the last thing I want is for you to stop playing. My job is to allow you to play more. Like that should be the goal,
Yeah.
right? Cool. And then so I know a lot of this stuff is, less. I think it's actually much more common now for a lot of pros that I've started talking to, even the new pros coming into the scene, that they're aware of how important it is to take care of your body. But in your career, did you see a lot of that shift in the last 10 years or so?
Mm, did I see it shift? Um, just people being more aware of it.
Yeah, like people actually valuing taking care of their bodies and health and wellness. In your experience as a player, has that always been a factor for you, or is that something that kind of developed the longer you played?
Mm, it's definitely a lot more common now.
Hmm.
And since I was obviously not one of the first people to have wrist pain, but especially as a public figure in League of Legends esports, speaking about it, I had a lot of players reaching out to me, and they were also kind of saying like they're afraid to talk to their team about it or their organization about it because that might lead them to getting kicked off the team.
Right.
So I think in that sense, it's a lot more normalized now. And just because you have wrist pain, it doesn't mean that your career is going to end in a year, right? If it's taken care of properly. But I think back then it was kind of like that. So people would
Yeah.
DM in me, be in the shadows, and be like, "What are the things that you've been told that can help? Is this something that can be helped, or am I just kind of doomed?" Because I'm sure a lot of people, they go to a doctor or a physical therapist that doesn't really understand what we do, and they tell you, "Hey, the best thing to do is to not play." And of
Right.
course, that's going to help, but it's not going
Yeah.
to help you do any
But
better as a player.
at the cost of your career, right? That's just
Yeah,
not
yeah.
worth it.
So it's
So
not really an option.
yeah, that's usually what I see too. Is if you're afraid of taking time off, right, because your career's on the line, then and the other option is then you play through it and then you make yourself worse, and that actually puts you at a higher risk of truly developing an injury and then not being able to play. Period.
Yeah, I
That's
did also, I did take a month off from using the computer at all, and my wrist pain did
wow,
not improve at all. So
wow. Okay, and that's actually
during the off season, so it was during a time where I didn't necessarily have to practice, but of course,
yeah,
you would rather be upkeeping your skill and
right.
adapting as the game is changing. But I took just a hard month off. I went home to see my family in Denmark and just didn't touch a computer, and I went back to play, and it felt the same. So
That's actually a huge takeaway because a lot of times what I tell people is like, yeah, even if you rest and it starts to feel better, in your case it didn't, but even if it starts to feel better, what happens when you start playing again? You haven't changed anything about the mechanics. You haven't changed anything about strengthening behavior. It's going to happen again, right? Like the game itself hasn't changed. So it's really important to, yeah, change those habits early on and then hopefully have that carry through your career. Do you feel that exercise and just strengthening cardiovascular exercise and all that stuff in general, does that actually help with performance too?
I think it helps a lot. I guess I'm technically retired, or I moved on from a player to a coach, but I think the playoffs that I played in summer of 2020 was one of the best I've played, and
I think most of the
I
world
really
would
put
agree with
a
you.
thanks. I
Yeah.
really put a much bigger emphasis on especially cardio and diet. I think strength training is something that's fairly common in esports, and of course it's also helpful, but I think a lot of people don't really take into consideration the ways that cardio can help you and affect your energy levels and diet as well. So I think
Mhm.
that's really where, at least League of Legends esports, I can't speak for other places because this is really where I've been operating.
Yeah,
It feels kind of lacking because
sure.
people want to lift weights and look good, and it makes you feel good, it makes you feel confident, but there's kind of that other side of health and wellness in cardio and diet that I think is kind of under addressed.
Yeah, and do you feel that that also affects your mental ability? Like so, pain obviously detracts from your attention and focus. Does that feel? Do you feel like that kind of compounds the stress, all the other stuff that's going on with being a pro player and kind of dealing with that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, of course. It's
Yeah.
really tough because especially if you feel like you're doing the right things, like I don't have all the answers because I felt like I was doing a lot of the right things, but
Mhm.
still wrist pain would come back every once in a while, and I was
Mhm.
going to the gym and I was doing my stretches and these kinds of things. I was seeing a physical therapist, but it's difficult and it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. But when it does come, it is pretty worrisome
Yeah.
because you never know, and you never know if it might turn into something more serious.
Sure.
Carpal tunnel is like the big thing that everyone talks about. I think it's less likely to happen from what I know from keyboard and mice compared to like controllers.
Yeah. That's actually
console
really, really
controllers.
good
But
point. And so I always actually tell players the first thing when I first meet them is, they always ask about carpal tunnel. In
yeah, yeah,
in the last
because
3
they know
years,
that's a death of gamers.
yeah, it's a big buzzword. I've actually never seen a league player truly with carpal tunnel. There's different nerve issues for sure, but I think the big cases of carpal tunnel that are in the media and have caused retirements are usually in StarCraft players, because I
Mm.
think the mechanical demand of their keyboard hand is just so intense.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the APMs are wild, but so yeah, I kind of want to also ask about, since you mentioned that, the transition of being a coach. Obviously, this is a huge change for you. How has that changed your schedule and your day-to-day routine?
Um, I would say that it's changed it in a positive way,
Okay.
because I like kind of getting up in the mornings. But as a player, if you want the best practice, a lot of that is at night. Because a
Hmm.
lot of the better solo queue players, they play late at night, at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., even midnight, into 1 a.m. So I kind of had to shape my schedule around when I would get the best practice. But now I can kind of wake up whenever I want. So I'm usually up at 7:30, which is not early for a lot of people, but it's early for a lot of esports people and the people that I work with. But uh, I can choose outside of practice time. I can choose when I want to work and when I want to wake up, and so I like that. I don't have to conform my sleep schedule to when other people are practicing. I can
That's
kind of
that
do what works for me.
man. That's actually really, really tough, because when you talk about your practice schedule, obviously going until 1 or 2 in the morning, I know that teams. I mean, you have to wake up and practice the next day in scrims too. So,
Mm.
now your solo queue time is like bleeding into your sleep time, and then you have to wake up even earlier to get ready for scrims and all that. I'm not sure about TSM's schedule, but do you guys do like morning meetings or anything like that, or workouts?
Yeah. Right now we have 2 team workouts a week. I'm trying to push it up to more,
Uh
but
huh.
the players are still kind of adjusting to working out because a lot of them weren't really active before. So we're starting out kind of easy, but I'm hoping to add more
Is that something you
than
brought
2 a week.
in as a coach?
It's something I was pushing for as a player, and it's an initiative we started last year. Actually, we started with there's a gym in the TSM facility, and we have fitness trainers virtually through a TV screen because
Mm-hmm.
right now they obviously can't come in
Yeah.
person. But we were doing 2 training sessions, and then they also give us individual training sessions that we can do on our own time
Great.
through an app. And I really enjoyed that. I think it's also just good for a team to work out together, doing
Yeah.
things that are kind of difficult and outside people's comfort zones, and also just spending time, the players spending time with each other outside of the designated practice hours, and only focus on the game. I think it's really healthy for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm most familiar with Cloud9, so that's the team I work with, and their regular workout schedule is also, yeah, because it creates that bond, right? Like everyone's struggling together, everyone feels like they're dying, and then
Yeah.
afterwards you feel like you got closer as a team. That's something that I experienced a lot in the military. They would make us do that kind of stuff too. Morning workouts with your whole unit. It creates
Mm.
a sense of family, and like you suffer together, you're closer. Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
think of it that way. So a question in the chat that I thought was really interesting was, has your experience with physical therapy and some of these injuries and all that pushed you to also help advise younger players on how to take care of this stuff? Like kind of pushing them in the right direction so that they don't have to deal with as many issues as well?
Um, I do kind of guide a lot of people when they reach out to me because they kind of know me as one of the early guys that had a lot of wrist pain. So, like I said, over
Mhm.
the years, I have talked to a lot of people. Uh, I don't really actively educate as much because I don't know all of the intricacies around what a proper setup looks like, and also I'm a really terrible role model, as Jennifer knows, because I sit in a certain way that feels good to me when I play, but
Yeah.
it's really awful for my body. But I tried sitting in a perfectly ergonomic way, and I just didn't feel like I had the same control over the mouse. So
Yeah.
I think there is something for everyone, but that's also why it's even more important to get these things down as early as possible, so you're not so many years into playing a certain way that it's hard to break out of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I try not to tell players to play differently than they're used to, because the last thing we want to do, even on the rehab side, is to change how you play, because that's how you got to where you are. And if you have a decrease in your ability and your performance, then obviously that's going to start detracting from your willingness to do anything that we tell you to do.
Yeah.
But what I try to recommend is, if you sit in bad posture for 40 minutes, that's fine. You finish the game. You can always change it up after, stretch, do all those things, and it should help reduce some of the stress on your body.
Mm.
But especially in a competitive setting, right? Like if it's a best of 3 and it's, game 3, like you have to be 100% there. I don't want any player thinking about their posture. That's like the last thing that should be on your mind.
Yeah.
So how's the change been going into coaching? That's another question that keeps coming up. I had some of my, social media, I had people ask about just general questions, and everyone kind of wants to know, how has it been being a coach now? Like, what's that transition been like?
It's been really fun, but challenging. It's obviously very different work than being a player. It's a lot more about kind of people skills and really knowing how to teach people and knowing how to meet them where they are and build on that, and also how to really take a team and get them on the same page. So I think it's similar to what I imagined, which is good, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not easy work. But I feel like I'm really pushing myself, and I'm learning a lot, even week by week. I'm learning from my fellow coaching staff who's coached for many years, and they're really helping me transition from the player and into becoming a better coach. And I think it's just been nice to try something new, because I was a professional player for, I don't even know, 9 years maybe.
That was one of the comments, was that your drafts and the team looks significantly better the last couple weeks, compared to, lock in and earlier on. So you can definitely see the effect that coaching has had. Like, you guys are definitely on an upward trajectory. It looks really good. Did you have a strong desire to become a coach even as a player, or is that something that kind of developed as you kind of were thinking about retiring?
I definitely did in the last few years. If you ask me, I remember maybe back in 2015, 2016, I just thought I could never imagine myself being a coach. It honestly seemed like a miserable job, because our players were just making it hard for our coaches a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But then as I kind of grew older, and maybe starting 2 years ago, uh, I a lot of the time felt like it might be kind of cocky, but usually that I was still performing pretty well, but a lot of the issues lied in our team play and in some of my teammates. And
Mhm.
if I didn't have to worry as much about my individual play, and I could focus more on helping them and helping the team environment, that our team performance would be much better. And I was always balancing both in and out of game. How much time do I focus on my own individual practice versus helping my teammates versus helping the coaches versus helping the team as a whole? And that's really difficult, especially as a mid laner, where your individual skill is really important.
Yeah.
But just over time, I realized it doesn't. If your team is not cohesive, and if your entire team is not kind of running smoothly and everyone's performing well, it doesn't really matter if one player is playing well. You're not gonna
Right.
you might beat some bottom teams, but you're never gonna accomplish anything significant. So,
Yeah.
uh, and I think just kind of there's going to be a natural transition of a lot of players transitioning into coaching. The players that are these players like me that ended up focusing more on the rest of the team and the team cohesion and their teammates, and didn't feel satisfied just focusing on their individual play, and losing in games where you might feel like you've performed well, but if you don't win as a team and if the team is not clicking, it doesn't feel good. That's
Yeah.
at least how it's been for me. My
Yeah.
enjoyment as a pro was always when we just feel in sync, when we have really clear plans and we're executing them as a team, and I feel like everyone's on the same page. That's really where I got a lot of joy from playing, and I still get to see that just from an outside perspective, just
That's
not being in
awesome.
the game.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool transition. Obviously, I'm good friends with Grayson too, and he's the new academy
Mm.
coach for 100 Thieves. Kind of made that same transition from player to coach, and I think he's also a mid laner, but he says that a lot of times it's sometimes frustrating because you almost want to play. He's like, I almost feel like I still practice to play mid lane and I want to be that good, but now I have to teach this other young kid how to do it, and sometimes they'll make mistakes that I wouldn't have made, or they play it differently than I would have. And
Mm.
so, is it hard for you to get out of the player mentality somewhat, or do you kind of feel like, okay, I'm fully embraced being a coach. I don't ever, like see myself as a competitor anymore like that?
Mm. It's probably slightly different also, because Grayson is coaching an academy team, so naturally, especially the mid laner that he's coaching, is probably going to be less experienced than him and going to make a lot of mistakes. I do think there are things that I could do better than Power Evil, but also I see so many things that he does better than me. So I have a lot of respect for him, and I don't necessarily feel like, oh, I'm just going to step in and play better than him, because I think in a lot of aspects he actually is a much better player than I would be if I was to play right now. And then in the areas where I wouldn't even say I was a better player, I was just smarter in some cases.
Yeah.
That's really when I can try to help elevate his game, and then in the end, he's going to be just a better version of me in almost every way, I hope. So
Yeah.
uh,
Do you have
I don't
an
really feel like I ever have a pull to play, which I'm kind of surprised. You never really know, but I feel like I just kind of made this decision. I could easily have kept playing, obviously, and I
Sure.
made the decision to go into coaching because this is what I wanted. And uh, of course, there are moments where you kind of miss playing the game, but
Yeah.
I get a lot of fulfillment out of what I'm doing now too. So
That's great. I mean, you guys look awesome, and I'm sure it's a whole new challenge for you. You're thinking about the game as a whole now too, and how everything integrates. Is that difficult from going from like being mid lane focused? I guess actually for mid laner, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? I would assume that mid laners and junglers have such a broad understanding of all the lanes and how the game works. Do you think it's easier to become going to the coaching route from mid lane or any lane in particular?
mm, I wouldn't really say so. I think more so depends what kind of player you are and what kind of person you are, rather than the role that you play. Uh, I do think at least when you're playing mid and jungle, you need to have, like you said, a certain level of understanding of every role, because when I roam, I need to be able to look at a lane and understand how is this going to play out in the next 30 seconds? What kind of impact can I have? Uh, that's a skill maybe less so top laners and AD carries build, but then they have other skills. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's as much about the role, I'd say.
Okay, interesting. And then now that you're a coach, have you started doing like courses on coaching or sports psychology, or taking any classes like that are more directed maybe at the coaching aspect?
I've always been an avid reader, so
Okay.
through my years, I've always read a lot, trying to learn, learning from the people around me, learning from leaders in other teams, like players that are in very player-run teams. So you could kind of say that they're the coaches because they're the ones that make the final decision a lot of the time and have a lot of the impact. And also, I am good friends with just some coaches in LCS, like Ziggs from 100 Thieves. He was my former coach, and he actually lives in my building. He's a good friend of mine, so I talked to him a lot over the last few years. And I also work with kind of a performance team called Liminal Collective, when I do a weekly meeting with them, and they help me with kind of whatever issues we're having with the team, and helping me come into this role in the best way that I can and be the best coach that I can be. And I think Curry, my assistant coach, is helping me a ton because he
Yeah.
has a lot of years of coaching experience, and he was just the head coach of FlyQuest. He brought them to the final.
Yeah.
Both splits, lost against my team in summer split though.
I was
But
gonna say.
he was our assistant coach back in 2017, so I already have a prior relationship with him. And since then he's only got more and more experience on different teams. So he knows me, he knows coaching, and he's really helping me with the transition a lot.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's great that obviously you've been in this league long enough to have a lot of connections like that. And then also having a organization like TSM, you guys have access to so many resources. Do you feel like that there's a large discrepancy in terms of, like some of the top tier orgs, right? The top 4 or 5, and how they have access to all these things. They have, the healthcare, they have performance coaches, all this stuff. Is that kind of throughout the whole league, or do you notice that that's separate from the top tier versus the, bottom 6 teams?
Mm, I can't really speak for the other teams because I don't know really the ins and outs of their team, but I know that TSM definitely has a lot of advantages. I mean, we have a gym in our facility.
Yeah.
A lot of people are unable to work out right now during COVID, so I think that's a pretty big advantage for both our players and staff. We've done pretty extensive kind of nutritional testing and allergy testing, and sleep tracking and all these things. So I think especially this year and last year, TSM has put a really big emphasis on health and wellness in general.
Yeah.
So
Do
I
you?
think
Yeah. That's great.
C9 was
Yeah.
one of the teams that I noticed was pushing it really early as well, especially with the team workouts and these things. And I think TSM is really following suit and trying to level up on some of those aspects too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the top tier orgs are starting to do that, and hopefully all the orgs will follow. I mean, it's really in the player's best interest, right? And not just from a performance aspect, but you guys are putting your bodies on the line. You're doing all this stuff basically for the org. I think it's really good that they're starting to prioritize how to take care of you, because I think the days of like gamers being these really out of shape people like sitting drinking energy drinks at 3 in the morning, it's kind of on its way, especially at the pro level. If you want to play at the highest level, you just can't live like that. You just don't last. So that's really cool that you guys are actually prioritizing it. What do you think are good tips for new players that are just entering pro or aspiring to be pro in terms of, what they should know about taking care of themselves and how to set up their own practices and routines, stuff like that?
Oh man. Um, I mean, from my perspective, I think a lot of learning comes from reviewing, more less so than playing. I think a lot of younger players, they just feel like they should play, 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 but they
Hmm.
don't do a lot of studying and reviewing their own gameplay and comparing it to other players who are very proficient on those champions or that play styles gameplay. And I think that's really when, as a player, I learned the most. It's really easy to just get caught up in playing X amount of games and playing as many games as you can, but I think there's a lot of value in obviously looking out for your health, taking breaks, but also just practicing in a smart way. And
Yeah.
I think the way I always felt about it is that every player works really hard and plays a lot of games, but it's really just about how much are you actually taking out of each game.
Hmm.
And it still surprises me to this day how many players just play without even consistently reviewing their own gameplay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's kind of a big
that's
skill that I
actually
think people
crazy.
should take away.
Um, so I think you definitely hit on a major point here. Is that did you notice that your practice changed from when you were a rookie or when you were first starting out in your career to near the end in terms of like you didn't just grind games? I'm assuming solo queue 8 hours and then go to scrims. You spent more time reviewing film and all that. Is that something that someone taught you, or you just kind of brought on yourself?
Mm, reviewing film, I don't really know where I picked that up. I think the biggest change that I kind of made from my early years to later years is I wouldn't say finding balance, because if you're a league esports player, you're realistically not really going to have balance, but finding some semblance of balance and health,
Yeah.
and especially focusing on things like fitness and sleep. Those are really the biggest things that have changed for me in the last 5 years. You still have to play a lot. You still have to grind a lot.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of League of Legends. The game changes too much to just play a few hours a day. You need to put in a lot of work
Yeah.
consistently over time, and that's also why a lot of people stop playing early, because just the requirements to be a top level pro player are really tough
Hmm.
time wise, and that's why it's really important to be efficient with your time and find these moments and these things that you do outside of practice that really help bring some balance to your life, I think.
Sure. And then now that you're on the coaching side, I'm assuming you have some say in like scouting new players and looking at possible people to pick up in the future. What do you look for in terms of a difference between a very, very good amateur player?
Sorry.
No problem. A very good amateur player versus a player that you think potentially could be a very good pro. Like, what are some qualities that you look for?
One sec.
Yeah.
I'm
Drink
choking on
water.
my tea. A good amateur player versus a potential professional player.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. I think there are a lot of different things. I think obviously just your individual skill is really important. And because I think mm, a lot of players, they ask me like, how can I start getting on teams and all these things, but they haven't even reached grandmaster or challenger yet. But realistically, if you want to have any chance of going pro, you should easily be playing in challenger, and
Right.
that's just kind of the harsh truth, and that's where you need to get first. That's the number one thing. And then once you're able to get there, you need to be able to stay in challenger, playing multiple champions across your role,
Yeah.
and not just only playing a certain champion, but playing multiple champions. And I think also the other thing that people really look out for is attitude. Uh, just in solo queue, how you're talking to your teammates, um, whether you're toxic, what's your kind of general attitude. I do think there are a lot of players who seem toxic in solo queue that aren't in a team environment, but there are a lot of players who've missed out on opportunities just because of how they have talked to other players in their team, or professional players, or maybe professional players that are on Smurf accounts, and then the players are just behaving in a really disrespectful way.
Yeah.
So I think attitude and playing a wide enough champion pool, but also just really having the individual skill to keep up is really important.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I think that culture is a big one that's really tough to pull out of solo queue, and then know that this player might actually fit in on a team of 5 people where they have to see each other every day, they have to play with each other every day. That's really tough. I think that's something that Riot could probably do better at, is like creating some better team system for scouting. But I guess Proving Grounds is you're gonna get everyone in the fire and just kind of see how everyone does in a tournament setting. So yeah. So you mentioned that you kind of like to de-stress with other hobbies. What are some things you like to do outside of playing League? Do you have other games you play, or do you have other activities?
Let me think. Exercising is a big one.
Mhm.
Well, actually, I'm not wearing it right now, but I'm currently in a stress fracture boot because I hurt my
Oh,
leg playing
oh no.
tennis.
Okay,
But I'm starting to wean off of it today, so in 4 weeks I should be completely
okay.
out. But exercise, weightlifting. I like to run, though I can't do that right now. I like to play
Mhm.
tennis, but I can't do that right now. Reading books. I have 2 cats or kittens that are very helpful in forgetting about the stresses of work.
Yeah.
And I've been playing a bit of chess because that's kind of the flavor of the month game, and we have a chessboard
Yeah.
at the facility. We also play
Uh,
ping pong. We just kind
yeah.
of have a lot of things that we do with each other to de-stress at the facility.
That's great. Someone in my chat actually mentioned that you're playing with Hikaru and you're gonna be a grandmaster soon or something.
I might need a little bit longer than that.
It's
But
huge right now,
it's
though.
a
Yeah,
fun, yeah.
yeah,
It's a lot of fun.
that's awesome. I actually really like that chess is coming back. That's something I used to like as a kid, and then I kind of stopped playing, and it's crazy to see all these people into it again. Um,
Yeah, I was playing as a really young child too. I had one of these like Kasparov engine chessboards where it has a built-in Kasparov engine and you
oh,
choose the
nice.
difficulty level because
Wow.
I didn't have anyone to play with. My older brother was too good, so he would just crush me. My dad would just crush me, and my younger brother wasn't really much of a fight, and I was doing really well against people my age, so I was just playing against this bot all day.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a really nostalgic game to play.
Sure, sure. Someone asked if you could play piano for us, but we don't have to do that right now.
I actually,
Uh,
uh, I kind of stopped practicing piano this year. Just changing into coaching and getting my cats have kind of taken up the time that I spent playing piano.
did
I
you
only played piano for about a year.
really?
Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Uh,
but I
um,
practiced for about a year all of last year.
I'm sure that helped with the mechanics.
I realized that when you're playing League of Legends, you actually get no like finger strength. But when you're playing
Yeah,
piano, you really need to have strong fingers and you need to be accurate with your clicks. It also just strengthens your forearms in general when you have to play. Um, so
okay. So
yeah,
so
I just realized you can sit on the computer so much, but really it's not really helping your body in
hey,
any
well,
way.
hey, this is the next thing, right? So we're gonna see TSM all playing piano soon, to strengthen their hands.
Yeah, yeah,
You guys can
it's
make
surprising.
a 5-man like orchestra or something. That's awesome. So in terms of like the tennis, actually, I wanted to get back to that. Did you have an injury playing tennis, or it was just kind of like a freak thing? You stepped wrong.
Uh, this is actually kind of an old injury that
Okay.
first happened in the middle of 2019. We were actually doing a performance boot camp in Malibu, and we were working out with like a Navy SEAL and some other guy, and we were doing all kinds of weird things on the beach, and then we were doing some kind of lunges or jumps, and I had a bad landing
Yeah.
on the beach, and I fractured my fibula, and so I just kind of then playing tennis, I had I guess like a misstep, and I think
Hmm.
it's probably just more prone due to the previous injury.
Sure.
So
Well, I hope you're seeing a physical therapist, a good one, for that.
yeah, yeah.
And then, so that's actually a good point too. Is that a lot of trainers, right? So I have a lot of questions from people entering the fitness space who are like, I want to work in esports. I want to work with gamers. I think one of the worst things I see is that people think of gamers. I mean, in a lot of aspects, we don't have to get in the debate of are you an athlete, are you not an athlete. But I think from the demands of what you do, you don't have to do crazy exercises to make a gamer healthier. I think that's the
Mm,
biggest takeaway. I always see these videos of like, oh, we're gonna take this esports team or whatever and do like a Navy SEAL workout. To me, that seems
yeah, I know.
just kind of crazy. Like,
I told our fitness trainers go very easy on them.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
building from like think about easy and then make it a little bit easier than
yep,
that, and that's kind of
yep,
where we're starting. So
yeah,
I think they do some weightlifting, but they also just do a lot of kind of stretches
hmm
and general body movements, and so.
Yeah, and Cloud9's trainer, that's kind of the feedback I had from early on too, is look, these are people that maybe have never ever worked out in their lives. You can't just throw them into a 2 mile run and then deadlift. You're gonna end up creating more issues than you're actually gonna resolve. So yeah. Okay, so another question that someone asked was, what's the hardest obstacle you've ever had to overcome?
The hardest obstacle in my pro career, or just in general?
Just in general, like when we say like, okay, hard obstacle, what immediately pops into your head?
My teen years were pretty much one long obstacle. I would say I dealt with a lot of bullying, both physical and mental. I dropped out of school in 8th grade,
Oh man.
and I think this whole esports kind of saved me, I guess you could say, because League of Legends was really my escape, and then I used that escape enough to become so skilled at it that I could start going to tournaments and make money. And then in Denmark, you're obligated, I'm from Denmark, you're obligated to finish, I believe, the equivalent of high school. But I hadn't done that, so I was constantly getting kind of pushed back in school and then back out and back in school. But League was really kind of my way to, I can actually go to Germany with a team, stay in a hotel, and I can play these LCS matches. I can go to these tournaments in Sweden, Norway, and Germany, and that's kind of how I got out from the hellhole of depression, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that's so reminiscent of other sports too. We hear that story a lot in traditional sports, right? Like basketball, football. A lot of kids say, this sport is actually what saved my life, because if I hadn't gotten into this, if I hadn't gone and spent all of my time and all my energy on this, I would have gotten into drugs, I would have gotten into a gang, or I would have killed myself. Like all these things.
Yeah, that's why I feel kind of guilty sometimes, because people ask me like, I'm depressed or I'm in a suicidal state, like, what did you do to get out? And I don't think I really did anything. Well, I just got super lucky, and not everyone's going to get as lucky as I was. So I'm just really fortunate that League blew up in the way that it did and gave me the ability to do this full time.
Yeah. Well, I think in some ways, do you feel like because you saw it as an outlet and something positive you could channel your energy to, do you think that made you a better player too, because you viewed it like that rather than just, this is a game I like to play?
I think it definitely gave me a different mentality, because I just had the mentality that no matter what, I need to keep doing this, and I need to just keep getting better, because the alternative is I go back to school where I was miserable, I go back home where I was miserable. So I was in Germany, in Cologne, and I think I came in and my team was already like 0-6 or something. And then I think we ended up 4th place in the end of the season.
Nice.
But I think, I don't want to call out too many people, but there are definitely some players in North America where you feel like their goal is to make it to LCS. And then when they made it to LCS, they kind of start relaxing a little bit. They enjoy the money that they make, the fame that they get. But for me, it was always like, I need to be the best so that I can keep doing this for as long as I can, and I never have to go back to school.
Have you watched that or the documentary on Netflix about Michael Jordan, or ESPN? Yeah. I think that's such a common trend in like the greats of sports, is they see it as constant improvement, right? You can't ever be settling for where you're at. You have to stay hungry. Even after winning 6 championships, Kobe was like, I have to keep getting better. And that's, do you see that? Do you think that's rare? It sounds like, obviously there's a lot of players who don't really prescribe to that mentality, but at the top level, do you think that that's what differentiates the best players from the people that kind of will forever, be churning through different teams, getting switched?
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. It's tough to say. You just meet some people where you know that they have that drive, and I think maybe it's more prevalent in some other places. Like I talked to Sword Art, for example. He said that the people that he meets and the players that they have on their academy team, they're so passionate and this is their dream. All they do is practice nonstop to an even like an unhealthy amount. I think it's harder to find in North America for sure, that kind of mentality.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that speaks to the larger problem of solo queue in North America and what the ranked grind really is. I think, you know, I'm very low elo, I'll be honest. But even in my solo queue games, what I see a lot of people fixate on is, hey, you're costing me my LP, or hey, you're holding me back, versus looking at yourself and be like, what can I do to get better? Right?
Mm.
Like, you know, most games, it's not just one person, you know, usually running it down completely and losing the game for everybody. It's usually a larger collective whole. Like, nobody played that well, you know? Um, so that's super interesting. Have you, you know, what would you say inspires you as a person or as a player or as a coach? What motivates you?
What inspires me? Um, I think just kind of what I realized over the years is that I just get really inspired by having this one goal, which is to win, to be when I was a player, to be the best player that I can be, to make the team the best that I can be, and then everything in my life I can kind of shape around that. And that it's really forced me to learn a lot about myself and forced me to learn a lot about even health and fitness and these things, because I really think being in good health leads you to perform so much better. And I just can't really imagine living my life without having such a clear goal, and also the ability to be tested every week on how you're doing. So I'm just really kind of obsessed with optimizing and making my life more efficient, my schedule more efficient, my work, my training more efficient, and making myself feel better and healthier, more focused, more energetic. All these things, these are just things that I'm always kind of reiterating on, and I'm still learning things
Mhm.
to this day. So it's just a really enjoyable process.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really, really respect and appreciate that. I feel like that's something I aspire to do in my life, but I haven't really, I think, gotten to that point yet where it's automatic like that, where it becomes this drive that's constantly and, you know, present. So really, really respect. I can
Yeah,
see that, you
it
know.
might be a little crazy too, but
No, but that's a good thing. You know, that's
yeah.
the right kind of crazy, because you're able to be focused. So this is just kind of a question I personally have. Who do you think's the best mid laner you've ever played against? Like, what was the most challenging person you've had to go against?
Hmm. Mm, that's a good question. Um, it's kind of hard to remember all the years, honestly, but I think back in 2014, I played against Pawn on Samsung White, and some would argue that Samsung White is kind of like the strongest team in relation to their that year of all time.
Yeah.
And he really taught me a lot about how to play smart, how to play with your team, how to use vision, how to deny vision, and the strongest kind of individual player. I can't, I don't know exactly which one, but I do know that I scripted against Showmaker this year at Worlds, and he was destroying me.
I've actually,
Not
I've
every
yeah,
game, but there
yeah.
were a few games where I just was like, wow, this guy is just freaking amazing. Like the
I,
things that
I've
he
heard that from
does are
other
just
mid
so
laners.
amazing.
Yep, I've heard that
Yeah.
from multiple people that Showmaker's just insane.
Yeah, he just did
Yeah.
things that are, I just thought I made a minor mistake, but then he would just capitalize it on it to the degree that it's pretty much ending my entire laning phase. So
Yeah.
I was really impressed with how he played and his understanding of it, of his champions and his limits.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the questions in the chat, I don't, and you don't have to answer this too accurately, but what are your goals with this team for this season? Like, where do you project you guys are shooting? Obviously, everyone wants to win worlds, but you know, coming from an A, that's kind of like, okay, it's a huge vision. Where do you think that this team can get to? Like, what was the ceiling for you guys this season?
Mm, hmm. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really think too much about goals because I just focus more on the process, and then I'll just see where that takes us and see where that takes the team. So the goal is always to win everything that
Yeah.
is possible to be won, right? Whether
Yeah.
that's realistic or not. That's you can't, at least I can't show up every day and put in my best if I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. So I think we have the players to definitely win LCS, do well at Worlds, and that's pretty much all I need to know to
Have,
just
yeah.
focus on the day to day and focus on the weekly improvements and the work that we're doing.
Have you read Atomic Habits?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
my roommate is also reading it right now. I saw it on his nightstand.
Nice. I just started reading it, and that's exactly what the first chapter is about. Like, not setting goals, because goals aren't related to achieving the goal. The goal is just an end result. You have to focus on your process, and I think that's exactly what you just described. That's the best way to improve, is to focus on the systems and focus on the process. Not everybody wants to win worlds, but
Yeah,
thinking that you want to win worlds doesn't actually help you get there. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So what's your favorite book that you've read in the last year? I know you read a lot, so I don't have to, I don't want to make you go through your whole
Oh,
lifetime.
that's tough. Mm, what's it called? I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the books I read in the last year weren't that amazing. I read this book. I can find it on my Amazon actually. It's called Leading from Alex Ferguson, the Manchester United general manager, which is basically the coach in soccer. And then I just finished a few weeks ago. I finished reading this book. It's called The Circadian Code, which basically just kind of talks about your really getting in touch with your sleep cycles and waking and kind of when you want to be eating foods and setting really specific sleep and waking times, and how to encourage that, and how to just have a healthier kind of body cycle overall. That was a really terrible explanation, but it was a very fascinating book, and I've definitely made some changes that I feel like just make me feel better on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. Yeah, I think all the little, I mean, that's another thing in Atomic Habits, right? Small changes over time equate to large changes overall. You guys have a sports psychologist on staff, or you guys have like that kind of performance specialists working with you?
We actually don't right now. This is the first time we haven't had one in a long time, because
Okay.
we're interviewing a lot of different people and trying to really find the right one. But I think it's a role that's really valuable.
Yeah.
This is about finding the perfect person.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I've always kind of stressed too. Is I think that the sports psychologist can really change the entire dynamic of a team overnight. In terms of impact, it's one of the probably I think the most important roles that a team can have, because of the effect it can have on the entire whole. I mean, because you guys don't have that right now, is that something that you find yourself dealing with, like managing player relationships, like how this person is interacting with the rest of the team? Like, are you kind of taking on that role of mediating?
Yeah, and it's definitely tough, and the kind of performance team is really helping me. I see a therapist every week. She helps me quite a lot.
To help you
Uh,
de-stress.
no, also just help me with we're kind of having this problem. What is a good way to
Mm.
talk to them? What is a good way to go about it?
Hmm.
And my staff helps me a lot, but I do think just how you're going about issues and the words that you choose to use and the way that you choose to address these issues is a really difficult thing to do and really hard to be skilled at. And
Yeah.
in that way, I'm really looking forward to us getting a sports psychologist, because I think even just as staff, of course the players can also find benefit to it, but even just the staff working with someone like that can make a huge difference, I believe.
Sure. You can learn from them and the little things that they can teach you as a, because there's certain things that the sports psychologist can't tell the players, right? Like, you can give them direct feedback on how they're playing the game, and the sports psychologist can't really do that. So I think it's important that they can teach you, well, here's the best way to convey that message, and how
Yeah,
you can make it so that they don't take offense when you're like, oh, you played this interaction terribly or something.
yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of last couple questions here, in terms of like mentality for a pro player versus someone who's really high level challenger, what do you think the big difference is between when someone's been playing pro for a while versus when someone's just solo queue for the last 6 years?
Hmm. Hmm. That's kind of a tough question, because I think everyone is just so different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is not answering your question super well, but one thing that I would like to see more is just people coming into pro play with a more humble attitude in general. I think that especially I've seen over the last 5 years, I've seen a lot of players that I really thought had potential and I really thought could be good, but I really just see their ego getting the better of them. And as soon as they start showing some promise, of course, then the community is gonna hype them up and talk about them, and that really makes them lose their humbleness and their hunger. So I think that's one of the most important things. It's like, again, the goal is not to make it LCS. The goal is not to be recognized. The goal is really, well, I want my players' goal at least to want to be the best and to want to be the best in their role and in North America at the very least. And I just feel like I see a lot of players who get that initial recognition of, oh, this guy could be good, this guy could be the next talent, and it just changes their motivation and their hunger to the point where they're not able to become the player that they could have been.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like somehow you have to translate that mentality into your whole team, right? Like how do you go about changing someone's maybe approach to wanting to get to that level? I mean, can that be changed? Or is that something that you have to just have inside of you that you recognize and be like, okay, let's pull that out?
Oof. That is definitely one of the harder things, and one of the things that I would probably consult a sports psychologist on to really help me. But I think every person is just different. I think I really encourage them to always be working hard and always be working smart, and not to get complacent. That even when we're doing well, I still want them to do the same things. I want them to watch all of our games. I want them to send me notes and their thoughts on every single game. I want them to watch. Always be critical of their laning phase, even if they win their laning phase. Be critical of every single moment, every single movement, every single trade, and just kind of try to just instill the mindset in the team that there's always more things we can improve on. We can always get better, and that, for example, I think we had a 3-0 weekend, and then we won another 2 games. We're on a 6-game winning streak, but really also highlighting that there are still all these things that we need to work on and all these things that we haven't figured out.
Yeah.
And this is not the end goal. This is just kind of a part of the journey, and we still have a long way to go if we actually want to hold the trophy at the end of the year, right? So.
Yeah, and I think that's a really hard a hard thing for teams to do, is to find good takeaways from wins, right? Like to actually look at a win and just take the end result out of it and just look at, well, what did we do wrong in this game? Like, what do we still need to work on? That's tough for people. I think even in solo queue, a lot of times if you play a terrible game and you just get carried and someone just pops off and carries the whole game, a lot of times a lot of players would look at that and be like, oh, great, I got to win at least, and they just move on. It's really hard for people to want to go into that game when it was a win and look at, okay, I played this really, really poorly. What can I learn from this? Even because you won't get carried every time.
Yeah, I think that's an issue. A mentality I've seen even in really veteran pro players, where it's like, oh, we won the game. Like, why are you talking about this? We played a good game. I think you should really be, players in general should be a lot less attached to the outcome and more so about the game and what they can learn from it. Because also a lot of players, they get just overly upset about losses, and they're not able to actually really learn from them because they're not able to stay calm, they're not able to stay in discussion, or they're not able to even focus what they're reviewing on their own because they just get too emotional or they get too caught up in things. So I think yeah, it's just really important to be able to learn from losses without getting emotional to the point where you can't have a discussion with your teammates, but also making sure that when you're winning that you are continuing to be critical of yourself and learn from those games. Because I think this is a Conor McGregor quote that I really liked. I think he said, like, if you sleep on a win, then you're gonna wake up with a loss.
Yeah.
Just basically, if you stop working hard when you win, then eventually you're not going to be winning anymore, right?
Right. I've heard that a lot. You have to. It's twice as hard to stay on top than it is to get there because you don't have that hunger anymore. Like the wolf at the bottom of the hill is always hungrier than the wolf at the top of the hill. So there's all sorts of sports sayings like that, right? What's your favorite memory of playing professionally?
I think just some of my firsts were pretty big, like winning my first North American Championship in Seattle at PAX. It was a really big moment in 2014, and then in 2015, I won my first international event in Poland, Katowice, and that was extra special because some of my family was live in the audience.
That's
They
awesome.
drove in from Denmark to watch me, and usually they don't really have the ability to watch me live because
Yeah.
I'm in the US and they're in Denmark.
Mhm.
But they were able to kind of drive down for the weekend and watch the games, and then I ended up winning that whole thing. And I think to this day, it's the only international tournament that North America has won. So
That's awesome. That's a
yeah.
great memory. Um, and then I mean you went out last year, right, with a huge win. Coming back, you guys were what? I think you made the lower bracket run, but I think every single one of your games went to 5. Like that was
Yeah.
that was insane.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie,
That's really tough.
I was shocked when you guys beat C9 out of 5 too. I was like, okay, that was an incredible run.
Yeah. That was a stressful time. That's always how that is in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
yeah, sure. Um, Great. Well, does the chat have any other questions for Bjergsen, Soren here? Because I mean, this is a great chat. I really enjoyed talking with you. I think you gave us a lot of good insight. I learned a lot, just about
Thanks, man.
mentality and league and any. What are your thoughts going into the season? Like, how do you guys, are you at this point? I mean, you guys were on a hot streak and you kind of tapered off a little bit at the end, but feeling confident, or are you guys still like, okay, we have to revise everything right now? How do you feel with the parity in the LCS even?
Mm, I think a loss is healthy.
Yeah.
Not because I really felt like my players were getting complacent, but that just happens naturally if you just keep winning and winning. So we had been showing some weaknesses that weren't really costing us games, but
Mhm.
now these weaknesses really, when it costs you a game, that's when the players are really going to change because they now they feel it. It's not just,
Yeah.
oh, we could have done this better, but we still won the game. Now it's, oh, this thing is losing us games, and we're
Mhm.
losing against a team that we don't feel like we should be losing against. Not to take anything away from Dig, they're performing well, but our
Yeah,
players just
yeah,
have higher expectations of themselves.
yeah.
So
And
uh,
do you guys? So, do you think the LCS is actually much more? Because right now, if you look at the standings, it looks very, very even. Do you feel like that's just kind of there's been a couple fluky wins, a couple random losses, and there's actually greater separation between the top, 6 teams, or is it really just the top 4 or 5 teams are that close?
mm, I usually don't read too much into early spring split
Hmm.
because there's almost always a team that does really well in the beginning that just kind of falls off at the end. That doesn't necessarily have to be Dignitas. It could even be ourselves. Who knows? But uh, a team like TL is obviously better than their current standing. They're a
Hmm.
really strong team. Who knows what might have happened after lock-in tournament? Maybe they got a little bit too cocky or a little bit too complacent, or they stopped continuing to improve. But I know that's a team that's going to be strong by the end of the year.
Sure.
Uh, so is C9, and I feel like so is ourselves.
Yeah.
And uh, probably 100 Thieves will be one of the stronger teams as well.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that makes sense. So, a couple of questions from the chat, really quick. I'm gonna skip over some of these, but who's the funniest player on your team?
on my team right now, I think Huni is really funny.
He's
There's
actually,
just
yeah, Hooney's hilarious. I chatted with him a
yeah,
lot when he was on EG last year, and yeah, he's a funny guy.
yeah. There's just something about that guy. It's really nice to have someone like that in the team environment that just kind of brings the mood up and is good at making jokes. And
Okay.
yeah, he's just a
My
hilarious guy.
Maya wanted to know: have you ever read a book called Why We Sleep?
Yeah, is that Matthew Walker?
I'm
Let me
not
see.
sure. I don't think she put the author, but
It is. It is Matthew Walker. Yeah.
okay. So you have read that?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. I think ever since I read that book, I always sleep at least 7.5 hours every night.
That's amazing, actually, that you're you're even able to do that. That's really really good. Most people can't do that. Period. Um,
Yeah, it's really just
so
priority that I always try to set for myself.
yeah, Cletus Chubbs asked, "Do you flash on D or F?"
D always. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the right answer. I'm doing this wrong. No wonder I'm stuck in silver. Um, all right. What's it like working with Sword Art?
Um, it's been really fun. I think that from my first conversation with him, he said like that he feels like when he's talking to me that he sees a mirror because we've just had very similar careers and a lot of the struggles that we had because
Mhm.
we both have a lot of experience, and I think we're similar people in the sense that we really try to not just focus on ourselves but help the whole team. And
Yeah.
the team be cohesive and the other players improve as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's just a really natural leader. He really pushes the whole team to practice harder, and he does that both through his words but also just through his actions. He just rose to rank 1 like a week after the ladder reset. He had like 60 something games played in a week outside of scrims, which is already 5 to 7 games a day, so he's playing more than 100 games in a week.
Jeez.
And
I really feel for him.
It's a pleasure having someone like that you can kind of work through. Of course, people respect a lot of things that he says. The guy's coming straight out of the World Finals.
Yeah.
People are going to listen to him, so I really try to talk to him a lot and have a close relationship with him and align on the things that I want to do with the team and the things that he wants to do with the team.
Yeah. That's great. It's awesome that you guys were able to bring in a foreign player and have him integrate so well and actually be a leader on the team. I feel like that's kind of unusual, actually, especially coming from a region like China where there's not a lot of LPL players coming here.
Yeah, the language barrier has been tough, and it has had its own kind of share of issues, some misunderstandings. That just kind of requires me to take an extra step with him and communicate with him more often and make sure that he understands and make sure that we're on the same page. That's honestly more so than culture or any of these other things. It's just sometimes the language barrier just needs some extra work and extra clarification.
Yeah, I really feel for him because I think he's coming into a really difficult situation, and obviously there's a lot of attention paid to him because of who he is and the way that he came here and all this stuff, and it's kind of unfair. He's doing his best, he's playing well. I think he's playing very well now that he's a little more integrated with the team. But yeah, it must be tough to deal with the constant criticism from outside. Like, the internet's just a terrible place.
Yeah, I mean, he's a support player. It doesn't matter how much he's getting paid. If the team is not functioning, he's not going to be just carrying every single game on his own shoulders.
I'm a support main. I definitely feel that. Like, there's only so much you can do. So a couple of so Vertex Performance, one of my buddies, Landon, he's a esports sports psychologist. He said to check out Boundless Life. It's a life lesson book he highly recommends. We already asked about the expectations. Jen wanted to know, have you been doing your exercises like we talked about?
I actually haven't started them yet because I thought I was only supposed to start them once the boot kind of weaning process started, which is starting tomorrow. So
Okay.
I will definitely start doing them tomorrow.
Perfect. She's going to check in with you.
Yeah, I would like to get my leg back so I can run and play tennis.
Who do you play tennis with?
Just kind of a lot of people inside my bubble.
Okay.
In the off season, I actually played with Grayson quite a bit.
Okay.
And then once we got into the bubble with Parth, my general manager, I was actually playing against Parth when my leg kind of broke. And there's a lot of people like our Andrew, who makes TSM Legends. He's kind of like the head of content on the league side, and also my assistant coach. So there's a lot of people I can play against. I'm just
who's
waiting for my leg to.
Who's the best tennis player on TSM?
I haven't gotten to play against them all because I had mostly played with Grayson and Parth, and I played a little bit with Ziggs as well, the head coach. So I was just about to play against Andrew and Curry and all these people, and then my leg exploded. So
lucky for them. You're about to.
We're all really bad. I was talking to Hikaru about playing too, but I think he's pretty good. So that's what he made it sound like. At least he'd been playing.
So he's not only a master chess player, but he can also play tennis. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, the rest of us are just kind of scrubs that play for fun.
Okay, cool. Another random question. What's your favorite blend of tea?
Blend of tea. I've been drinking a lot of this. It's like a black licorice tea from Denmark that my brother sent me for Christmas. It's definitely not for most people, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think black licorice is...
Other than that, I just kind of drink... I honestly drink any kind of tea, but mostly green teas in the morning, and then I like to drink this licorice tea at night.
Okay, great. And we kind of went over that. Improvements. Cool. And classic last question here. What is the last thing you watched on Netflix?
was watching the show that Treats, my former smart player. He's
Yeah.
now on SK.
He's smurfing right now. He's
Yeah, he's doing so well. Is there any way for me to see what it was? It's actually been a little bit of time ago. I don't watch too much.
Okay.
It was some show about different coaches, and it highlighted different coaches from all different kinds of sports. I don't have the name right now, but
So even your Netflix time is very focused.
I know this
On
is what I'm saying.
improvement.
This is the
That's great though. That's great.
this is the crazy.
You know
crazy
what though?
part.
I think that's if anything, that's a sign that you're going to do very well. I think that's a very positive feature to have for someone doing what you do. I think that's a big predictor for success, is that you're obsessive about self-improvement, and that's the only way to continue to improve. Like, there's no other way about it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely find some balance outside of it, like
Mhm.
friends and family and my cats. But other than that, I try to be pretty focused on the things I want to work on.
What are your cats' names and how old are they?
I can actually grab one. He's right over here. They're both around 7 months.
Oh,
One is
wow.
called Milo and one is called Luca. Oh, come here, buddy. He's a pretty big boy.
Oh, he's cute.
Hey, buddy.
Are they from the same litter or two separate?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up, buddy? Yeah.
That's awesome. Why'd you get two?
Just because I spend a good amount of time at the office and they can kind of keep each other
Wow.
company.
That's
I
great.
I'd never imagined myself having 2 pets, but just from everything that I read and the research that I did, any kind of pet is gonna have a hard time if you're gone for so many
Yeah.
hours in a day.
Yeah.
Uh,
I got a
they
puppy.
they really take care for each other and play with each other, and also have a roommate that is luckily at working out of home. So
Okay, nice. Yeah, I got a puppy over quarantine, and I feel so bad now that I'm going back to work again when I have to leave him
Yeah.
at home. And I'm just like, we have a little camera, so I can actually talk to him now and like shoot a treat out at him. So he really likes that.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
It's
Lucas
not-
started being in my bed when I started going to the
Oh,
office.
no.
So it's just too much of a transition.
Oh no. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that was
terrible.
pretty stressful.
Yeah.
So I went from working at home to go to the office for 10, 11 hours, and then I come home and there's cat pee in my bed. So
Oh no. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for setting aside some time out of your busy schedule. I know you guys have a lot going on right now. It's halfway through the split. Wish you the best of luck this split.
thanks.
Yeah. And then if you ever need anything, obviously you can reach out for us. And I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Oh, the chat all consensus is I think you need to find more time to play piano.
Yeah. I do feel a little bad about it. Damn, playing piano is hard.
It is hard. It's really, really
But
hard.
in some way, I kind of felt like it was healthy for my brain. It really trains you to focus. Because some of it is pretty tedious, right? But
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I will hopefully talk to you soon, and good luck this split. I'll look forward to watching you guys play.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you, Soren.
You too.
Cool. All right. Let's switch this. Cool. Great chat. Thank you all for dropping in for that interview. Super nice guy. Bjergsen is one of the nicest players I've ever met. I thought that was really informative. I learned a lot about who he was as a person, and really, I'm not a TSM fan, but I feel like I low-key have to root for him a little bit now. So I'm rooting for like 4 teams in LCS that are all probably going to be playing for the top 4 or 5. Well, I mean, it has nothing to do with TSM. It always had to do with the fact that I was, initially working with C9 and then EG, and TSM's always been that other like dark team that like ends up taking C9 out of playoffs. Do you guys have any questions for me? Really appreciate you guys all dropping in. We'll be doing more stuff like this. Quick pitch. This Sunday, I will be interviewing another fantastic guest. I'm going to be talking to Edward Cleveland from Mind Body Esports. He is he's the sports psychologist, or not sports psychologist. He's a mental health performance specialist for 100 Thieves. and he's worked with really, really big teams, really big players. He works with their Valorant team, their League of Legends team. He's worked with Complexity and CSGO. Really smart guy, and we're going to get into health, wellness, mental preparation, nutrition, a lot of stuff I actually don't know that much about. Yeah, so I'm really, really excited for that one because that's going to be something completely different, and hopefully you get to learn a lot more about that. Yeah. So thank you all again for dropping in. So Maya's been pitching our Discord. We do have a Discord channel. If you guys want to drop in, ask any questions. I'm happy to talk about PT stuff, gaming. If you have suggestions for people you want to bring on, definitely open to creating more content for you guys. So thank you all. Have a great night. Oh, and also, yeah, thank you for the host, Maya. Appreciate it. All right, see you guys.